Hello everyone. Today in this session we are going to learn about edaphic factor. This particular chapter or topic is divided into three sessions. The first session we will be talking about soil, its components and profile. In the second session we are going to learn about the types of soil, and in the third session we are going to learn about the soil erosion and soil conservation. So in this session, we are going to learn about what soil is and what the components of soil are. The word soil has been derived from Latin word solum, which means upper layer of earth's surface. This word soil has different meaning for different professions. If I'm talking about an agriculturalist, it is the loose surface material of earth in which plants grow. For a geologist, it is the material which is produced as a result of disintegration of rocks and which has not been transported from its original position. But for an engineer, especially a civil engineer, soils are an incremented accumulation of minerals or organic particles occurring in the zone overlaying the rock crust. Factors which relate to structure and composition of soil are called as edaphic factors. It is a complex medium. Soil is a complex medium, and if you want to have a fertile soil, it should contain mineral matter which are about 40%, organic matter about 10%, water about 15%, and air about 25%. Mineral matter in the soil occurs in the form of particles. Soil can be studied under both physical and chemical properties. Each phase of the soil contains a number of constituents which make the whole soil system highly complex. On account of changes continuously taking place in the soil, the system is never in equilibrium. Mineral matter is extremely variable in size. Some are as large as the smaller rock fragments. Others, such as colloidal clay particles, are so small that they cannot be seen without the aid of an electronic microscope. Organic matter constitutes of material which is synthesized by plant and animal residues. Such material is continuously being broken down by the action of soil microorganism. Organic matter influences soil properties and consequently the growth of the plant. Organic matter improves the physical condition of the soil and it increases the water holding capacity of the soil and is a measure of source of nutrient for the plants. If the organic matter is high, then the soil is fertile because many nutrients are there for the plant. It is also a main source of energy for soil microorganisms because they are the ones which are breaking down the organic matter and giving the nutrients back to the soil. Soil water is a major component, especially in relation to plant growth. Water is held within the soil pores, and if the moisture content of the soil is optimum, then the plants can readily absorb the soil water. Not all the water which soil holds is available for the plants. Much of the water remains in the soil as a thin film. Soil water dissolves salts and make up the soil solution, which is an important medium for the supply of nutrients to the plants. There is an exchange of nutrients between the soil solids and the soil solution, and also between soil solution and plants. So, water stored in the soil may be classified into the following four groups. One is chemically combined water. Two, hygroscopic water, which is adsorbed by the soil particles. Three, capillary water, which is present in between the small places which is there between the soil particles, like a thin film it is coating around the soil particles, and gravitational water, which is going down towards the gravity of the earth. So of all these water, only the capillary water is available for the plants for its absorption. The main source of water to the soil is rain. Some of the water goes into the reservoirs. This is called as runoff or runaway water. That means as soon as the rainfall occurs, the water which is dropping down onto the earth will run off to a lower lying area, maybe a catchment area or a reservoir. The water which is left on the soil is what enters into the soil. So rest of the water, that is after the runaway water or runoff water, is going into the reservoirs or the catchment areas. The leftover water is going into the land or the soil. This could be, as we have discussed earlier, the gravitational water. It is a form of water which reaches at the soil water table due to the gravitational force after the rainfall. So once it reaches the water table, this is what is available for the bore wells. So when we pump out water from the soil or land, we are taking water from this water table. This form is not available to the plants but available by mechanical methods or by tube well irrigation. Then hygroscopic water. Thin film of water is tightly held by the soil particles, and it is called as hygroscopic water. This water is also not available to the plants. Chemically combined water. The amount of water present in the chemical compounds which are present in the particles of soil is called as chemically combined water. This also is not available to the plants. Then capillary water. Water exists between the soil particles in the small capillary pores called as capillary water. It is the most common available form of water for absorption by the plants. So of all the kinds of water in the soil, only capillary water is available for the plants for its absorption. Next component after soil water is soil air. A part of soil volume that is not occupied by soil particles is known as pore space. This pore space is either filled with water or with air. So it is called as soil water and soil air respectively. The pore space is occupied by both air and water. The volume of air varies inversely with that of the water. That means as the moisture content of the soil increases, the air content decreases and vice versa. Soil air has marked effect on the plant and root growth, including soil microorganisms, plant nutrient formation, and their availability. So since there is a lot of life which is growing on inside the soil, their needs for respiration, that is, the air is needed for their respiration and for their growth. The content and composition of soil air is determined to a large degree by the soil-water relationship. It contains a number of gases, that is nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water vapors. The soil air differs from atmosphere in several respects. It contains greater proportion of carbon dioxide and lesser amount of oxygen. High moisture content is present in the soil air than in the atmosphere. Now, let us come to the next part, that is the soil profile. We have seen the soil components, that is organic mineral matter, organic matter, soil water, and soil air. Now we are coming to the soil profile. It is nothing but a vertical section of earth crust, almost equivalent to 6 feet. So this particular vertical section of earth crust is called as soil profile. The structure, thickness, consistency, texture, porosity, color, chemical composition, all these things make up the soil profile, and this may vary from place to place. It all depends upon the climate and vegetation and also the parent rock of that particular area. So this soil profile, especially the topsoil, is thicker in forests than in deserts and grasslands. Now, the soil layers are called as horizons. There are 5 horizons. The O horizon, that is the organic horizon or the litter zone. Then A horizon or the topsoil. Then B horizon or subsoil. C horizon or the weathering rock, and R horizon, that is the bedrock. So from bottom to top you have R horizon, C horizon, B horizon, A horizon, and O horizon. Now, O horizon, also known as litter zone, is having fresh or partially decomposed organic matter. So whatever, suppose it is a forest, whatever leaves, flowers, fruits, or dead parts of the animals, they're all falling onto this particular zone. That's why called as a litter zone. It is rich in saprophytic fungi, bacteria, and protozoa, because all these organisms are saprophytes, that is, they are depending upon the dead and decaying organic matter. And this particular zone is rich in it. It undergoes changes in soil temperature and moisture. And it is present in forest areas but absent in desert, grassland, and cultivated land. Below this O horizon lies the A horizon. It is also called as topsoil or zone of alluviation or leaching. It is further divided into three major parts: A1, A2, and A3. A1 is rich in humus, dark colored, rich in organic material, mixed with mineral soil, and rich in bacteria and fungi. A2 is zone of maximum leaching. That means all the minerals which are decomposed in the O horizon can go up to this particular level. Then it has less humus, that is organic material, light in color, silicates, clays, iron oxide, aluminum oxide are removed from here. The last part of A horizon is A3, and it is a transitional zone to the subjacent B horizon. That means it is a connecting link between A and B horizon. When we now come to B horizon, it is called as zone of alluviation. A horizon was zone of alluviation. Now B horizon is a zone of alluviation. That is, it is where the materials are collected. It also is divided into three parts: B1, B2, and B3. Here, all the transported materials are precipitated. It is a firm zone, granular or prismatic in nature. It is deep colored in because it is having aluminum, iron, and organic colloids. It is rich in clay. Roots of shrubs and trees reach up to this horizon only. Roots of herbs and grasses you can see in A horizon, but roots of shrubs and trees come to the B horizon. The next horizon below the B horizon is C horizon. It is thick and contains large masses of weathered mineral materials, and it is having waterlogging, low oxygen content, and it is having two layers called as gray layer, that is CC, rich with calcium carbonate, and zone CS, that is rich with calcium sulfate. These two zones, that is CC and CS zones, are characteristic of grasslands. You find them in grasslands but not in forest. Below this C horizon is the D horizon. Here the rocks are in active weathering state. The last layer here in soil profile is R horizon, or also called as a bedrock. It is the lowermost layer of parental rock from which layers of soil are derived. That means this is the rock from where you have got the D horizon, C horizon, B horizon, A horizon, and A horizon. O horizon. Sorry. Now, why should we learn about soil profile? Why is it so significant to us? Why is it so important to us? It gives the type, nature, and thickness of different soil layers present in that area. So, if you want to go for building construction, or maybe for vegetation or tree plantation or crop plants or building up grasslands, you need to understand the soil profile. According to the soil profile, the vegetation will be, or you can also say it the other way around, vegetation will affect the soil profile of the particular area. It shows any change in the behavior of soil with depth. Now, if you want to see how the changes are occurring inside the soil, you have to take a profile of it. Otherwise, you will not be understand the changes of behavior of soil. It gives the depth of water table below the ground level. It indicates any local pocket of different soils in a particular area. It indicates how the soil characteristics are influenced by the geological history. Then it gives a rough idea of depth of foundation. That means where exactly is the parent rock, how much time has elapsed in building up the particular soil profile from the parent rock, and what is the geography of that particular area, to which plant is it conducive, or to which forest type or grassland type is it conducive. All these information can be understood by understanding the soil profile. Thank you.